Well, hello and welcome back to the latest episode of my Love Machine podcast. Now, when it comes to dating coaching, I have been doing this for 16 years and I'm a coach for many different dating brands of a wide variety of different niches. And one of these is Hindu and Sikh matchmaking. And as such, I am a coach for an amazing company that I've known since the beginning called Project 143. This is an amazing company who focus on matching up single professional Hindu and Sikhs. And it's a great company. And they have recently, in the last 6 to 12 months, really redeveloped the company and they have grown massively. So today I'm really happy to bring you an amazing matchmaker who I've got to know quite well, Frances Shillito. Frances, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I am really good, thank you. I am looking forward to this chat. I know that we've spoken, well, by emails mainly. We've never had a face-to-face before, have we? We've been meaning to do this over coffee, but we will do that very soon. But today, I really thought it would be a great idea to get you in to chat about what you do for Project 143. So first of all, can you just explain to my listeners exactly what Project 143 is and what the story is behind it?
Yes, of course. Project 143 is a very bespoke and personal matchmaking service for Asian professionals in and around the UK. It was set up by Anika Patel, who's a British Asian herself, to help British Asians who are frustrated by the algorithm age and who are looking for something more meaningful and long-lasting by providing a more meaningful and personal matchmaking service that involves less mismatching and less game playing that goes on amongst the dating app world.
Fantastic. So Project 143, what does Project 143 stand for?
I love this question because it's such a lovely answer. Project 143 stands for, so the 143 is the amount of letters in I love you. And it was Anika's project to make people fall in love.
That's great. I've known Anika since he started. We used to have coffees together and I became their coach. I've noticed that it really has grown a lot over the last year, probably when you took over, I imagine. Is that right? How is business going?
It's going well. I've definitely noticed the pickup since, lockdown has started to ease and people want to get that human connection back, I think. And the one thing I've said is that, and I can vouch for this myself, in that, lockdown had its pros and its cons. And one of the pros, I think, is that it forced us all to focus on what it is that we really want, whether that was if we were single or whether we were in a relationship. We had a lot of time to think about, our real wants and desires. And so off the back of that, I think people really now know when it comes to dating, what they will tolerate and what they won't tolerate and what they want in their life and what they don't want in their life. And with that, I think people are also yearning for that human connection and want to go out there and meet somebody new.
I definitely agree with you. I've seen a massive upturn in the last 18 months in terms of people looking for this. People just don't want to be with the wrong person or have to settle. Because if we get more lockdowns again, no one wants to be bubbled up with the wrong person.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's been quite a lot of breakups as well, I've noticed over this time. And even now, rather sadly, I'm getting clients coming back to me who have breakups because they've realized, you know what, I really like that person, but life has changed. Because not just relationships, maybe their goals in life, their passions in life, and their direction has changed as well. Because people have been delaying a lot of things in life, as well as relationships, maybe doing something sort of bigger venture they want in life. And they thought, you know what, I'm going to go out and do this now. Life's too short, isn't it?
Yes, I think that's definitely what COVID has shown us, that, we actually aren't in as control as we thought we were. And, things like this do happen. And when they do, we want to make sure that we're in a much nicer scenario with much nicer people than maybe we once were.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And we're going to talk about this in a minute about algorithms and dating apps, because I know that's something that Anika definitely does not like people doing. People hate it more than ever now, I've noticed. But before we do, can you just tell everyone about you? What is your story? What made you become a matchmaker?
So I'm a 31-year-old professional myself, and I've done various different roles in the professions that I've worked in since leaving school. I left school and moved straight to London to train to be a celebrity makeup artist, which I did for a good 10 years. I did a good decade in it. And, you know, the vast majority of being a makeup artist, especially that high up, is being a people person and being able to walk in the room and get to know somebody very, very quickly and make them feel good about themselves and figure out what it is that makes them feel good and be a nice person to be around. And then off the back of that, I then got into music management because it was usually within the music industry and celebrity that I worked in, but I wanted to take a step back from being quite so hands-on and more on the business side. But again, in the music business, you have to be a people person and again, know what people are looking for and how to talk to people. And then I met Anika back in March, and you know, the matchmaking thing got presented to me, and I figured out that, you know, a lot of matchmaking, I do a lot of matchmaking in my previous professions, but this is more to do with people's love lives rather than business. But it's the same thing. It's being able to get to know people very quickly, understanding them as a person, me being easy to talk to. I think that's a big thing. You know, you can put me in the room with anybody and I will give them the time of day. I will be open-minded and spend the time getting to know what it is that, you know, that they want and what they're looking for and what it is that makes them feel comfortable, which is why I think it makes me a great matchmaker, because I'm very good at getting to know people and figuring out what it is that they want and what they're looking for. And I also have very good experience in the dating world, unfortunately. You know, I've been on a lot of dates, I've had a lot of different types of relationships, so I can empathize with clients very well because my experience, I've been through heartbreak, I've been the heartbreaker, I've had all sorts of different experiences, and I think that's invaluable when it comes to coaching people and being their matchmaker, because a lot of being a matchmaker is, you know, it's not just us setting them up. It's, you know, I'm available for them to talk to, tell me how their dates went, how they're not going, if they've had an experience of some form, whether that be gaslighting or whether it be a good experience. Again, I can understand what they're going through and aid them or advise them into kind of what to do or what to say. And yeah, that sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing. But if I can use my experiences in the dating world to help other people, then that's one thing in life that I do pride myself on, is I like to use my own experiences to help other people.
I do that as well. I always talk about myself. A lot of coaches don't do that. We're told you shouldn't, as a coach, talk about yourself, but it makes you relatable to understand that I've been through these things myself. And even if I haven't, I know someone that has, because of all the clients. I think empathy is an absolutely important thing to do what we do as well, because you have to understand people and care about them. Do you find sometimes you take this home with you, that you are thinking about clients in the evenings when you're trying to sleep? And because I do.
Yes. I think I've had that problem throughout my life in all my jobs because they're so personal. Yeah. And I think I mentioned this to you briefly before, when you love your job, it's a catch-22, because yes, we enjoy it, but it also means you kind of carry it with you all the time, because you're available 24/7, because you're quite happy to be. But it does mean that, yes, when I'm going to sleep at night or when I wake up, you know, these people are on my mind, because I like to make sure that I'm doing a good job. And that is sometimes quite hard to switch off. Yeah. It's
difficult. It doesn't get any easier. 16 years. Because the more clients you have, the more you care about them. And then when they come back to you, you think, well, that was a great success story. I wonder how they're getting on. Or they might come back to you and say, well, what do I do now? I want to get married to them now. What do I do now? How do I make ask me out? How ask me to marry them or move in with me? Or they want to move their kids. All sorts of weird things I get coming back to me. But I think repeat business is always a good sign. That's what I think.
Yes. Yeah.
So what other skills do you think are important when it comes to matchmaking, to be a matchmaker? Because people think it's an easy job, and it's not, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, sometimes it is, depending on the client, but I think you have to be patient. I think patience is a big, big skill to have, especially when it comes to people, because again, everybody's personalities and everybody's experiences are different, and some people are in a rush, and some people's each individual client's patience is different. So when we think we might be taking our time, to them it might seem a lifetime. So I think understanding how that person's brain works and being patient with them, and also being able to communicate well, because if you're not good at communicating, especially with how you're working or what you're doing. Again, some people like a lot of communication, some people are okay just having it, more sporadic. But as long as you as a matchmaker communicate with them and stay in touch, I think that's really important. And honesty, full transparency of what's going on, whether that be to do with the matches that are being made or feedback to them as a person. I think being completely transparent is key to being able to help them.
It definitely is. I think what people do, they buy into the matchmaker themselves rather than the company sometimes. So if you're going to be a successful matchmaking company, you've got to have good matchmakers who are likable, friendly, know what they're talking about, and people that are trustworthy. There are plenty of matchmakers out there that I don't work with who are just, give me the money, how much are you going to pay me? And they take the money and disappear. And they aren't the ones that convert, because people just think, no, I don't think so. And it just leads to trouble. If you're going to spend that sort of money on a matchmaker, then you want someone you're going to like. So it's important. Yes. And I think it's a good indication that you are doing well yourself, because you've got lots of clients coming to you. And I know this because I coach a lot of them. And I can always see with a company how well they're doing, because some companies haven't sent me a client in 18 months. Some send me clients every day, every week, every month. And I can see the patterns of how good matchmakers are. And I know from the feedback, you didn't know I was going to say this, but the feedback has been from you that you're amazing. And everyone's buying into you and thinks that you're great. So there you go. I'll make you blush and say
lovely.
That.
Lovely, thank you.
There you go. And I wouldn't say that if it wasn't true, because I wouldn't need to. So that's that. And okay, great. So what sort of clients generally come to you in Project 143?
We cater, and we do mainly get professionals in London, British Asians that work at a certain profession. We do, when it comes to the honesty thing, we are very honest in saying that we are quite particular with who we take on, purely because we want to make sure that the people that we take on match our current clients. So, if we are looking after people of certain professions that are well educated and working, high up in business, then we want to make sure that we are providing them with matches that match what what they're looking for in life, basically. So, age range, our demographic is really 28 to 45. We don't tend to take people on younger than that, because again, we want to take people on who are serious about what they're looking for. And, my experience, and I'm sure your experience and everybody else's experience in life, is that you generally, your earlier 20s, you think you might know, but you don't. I think, it takes us to around your 30s really to kind of really know what you're looking for and who you are as a person. Again, that's where coaching comes in very handy, but a lot of self-development comes with age. And when you're in your early 20s, I think your priorities are different. It's more about going out and experiencing life. And with that changes what you're looking for in a person. So yeah, it's usually 28 to 45. That's our kind of main demographic. And, British Asians in and around London. We do spread out to Birmingham and Leicester and Manchester, but it is more focused in the city.
That all makes sense. I think when you're younger, early 20s, you're absolutely right. That's when you should be experimenting, seeing what you want, trying a bit of this, trying a bit of that, and seeing what you really want. If you jump into things too quickly, then you're never going to live your life, and you're always going to wonder what else might have been out there. So exactly. I do think if you're under 25, then it's fine to go on to maybe Deal Mill or even Tinder and see what might be out there, because you should. Otherwise, you're missing out on the experience, good or bad, right or wrong. To do that, you have to learn and you have to grow. I've worked with many different Asian brands over the years. Asian Single Solution is one of them I worked with for 15 years. And I did lots of events. So I know that the struggles are different for Hindu and Sikh clients. But in terms of what you do, what sort of processes do you follow when it comes to matchmaking? What if someone comes to you, what would the whole journey look like?
Okay, it's quite a long process, which I always say to people at the start, well, especially if they've inquired by finding us on Google or LinkedIn or through a friend. It's, it'll start with a phone call where they'll talk to me and they'll explain, usually what happens on an inquiry like that is people will explain why they've come to us, how they found us, what it is they're looking for. Then I'll get them to fill out our registration form, which gets submitted to us through the database. That gives us a better idea of who they are, what their background is, what their character and personality is like. Then it goes on to explain exactly what they're looking for, what their deal breakers are. It gives us that kind of profile to look at as an agency. Anika and I will look at it and go, yes, we've got what they're looking for. No, we haven't. If we have, and we like the look of their profile and they match what, our criteria, then I'll give them a call. I'll contact them via email, or I'll give them a call and say, would you like to book in for a consultation? And the consultation is a much more in-depth version of that. Basically, we'll sit down and go through their registration form and talk through it step by step together. It also gives me an opportunity as a matchmaker to meet them, get to know them, because you can read through a form, but you don't know what that person's like. You don't know if they're likable. You don't know if they're good at talking. You don't know if they're quiet, loud, like me, very expressive with how they speak. So that consultation is really important, because it helps me as a matchmaker gauge, if we were to take them on, then I can remember maybe they're more outgoing, so they'll suit so and so. And then we'll go off after the consultation, and I'll write all their consultation notes up, send it back to them, and we'll come up with a quote if we do decide to go forward with it. And if the client decides to go forward with it, then they'll get given their personal quote on the cost of what it will cost them for the year or 6 months. We usually only take people on for 12 months because it gives us more time. I think unless somebody's in an immediate rush to meet somebody, or they're incredibly easy to match, we do encourage people to do a year, because it's just a much nicer journey to go on. You can't rush love, as we all know. They might be lucky enough that the first match we put them on is the one, and off they go off into the sunset together and live happily ever after. But we can't control that part. So it's a much nicer process, because matchmaking, the one thing I say to everybody is, most people have used apps, and the biggest difference is, do not expect an influx of matches once you're signed up. It's not like we're going to go, right, here's 10. It doesn't work like that. They've given us the criteria of the person that they're looking for. That takes time for us to go and make sure that whoever we send them will match what they've given us. We won't, if they've said they want 6'3", age 20, given us 28 to 34, and given us all these demographics, we're not going to then send them someone who's 5'4" and has the exact occupation. We'll say to them, look, if your criterion height is 6'4" to 6'1", and somebody was 6 foot, I would massively encourage them to be a little bit more open-minded and go on the date with somebody who is an inch shorter. But we're not going to send them somebody who's a whole foot shorter and, smokes, when they said they'd want somebody that didn't smoke, things like that. And that takes time. Whereas on a dating app, you get sent God knows who. I know that from experience.
Well, you can't search on these apps for things like height, can you, on Tinder? No. You can't do that, which is probably a good thing, particularly with the Asian crowd, because Asian men are typically quite short compared with other types, you would say. And I have tall women that come to me, 5'10", 5'11", and fair enough, if you want a tallish guy, I understand the reasons for that. But most average guy is probably 5'7" who's Asian. So be realistic on this. And you mentioned algorithms at the start of this and on these dating apps. And I always say that these apps are not redesigned to help you meet somebody quickly. Because if they were, they would show you the best matches. The algorithms would work in your favor, but you'd never spend a penny with them if they gave you a perfect match quickly. But with a matchmaker, it's the opposite, isn't it? Because you're paying a nice fee to get a result that you want, and it's relatively quickly. And I've noticed a trend, actually. You mentioned about 12-month memberships, because I work with so many agencies. That is becoming more of a trend, 12 months rather than 6 months. It's slowing the process down. Because 6 months, there's a lot of pressure, isn't there? There's like, I haven't got someone yet. 5 months have gone by. What's going to happen?
Exactly.
And also, maybe they've gone out on a few dates and met someone amazing. And well, okay, great, but I've paid for all these matches. I'm going to still see you out there. And it goes on. It's a balance between the two. But this is all great. Now, something I want to ask you about as well. You mentioned this right at the start for yourself, that being open-minded. I see when it comes to matching and many clients, being open-minded is quite a problem, because these apps give you so much choice, it makes it hard. What do you think about clients being open-minded? How open-minded are they really? And how much direction can you give them to direct them in the right way?
That's probably one of the things that has surprised me most about being a matchmaker, is how not open-minded some people are, and how people do kind of view the opposite sex as an object of some form to them. And, you know, I say to people, there's no wonder why you're single, but meant in the best possible way. But, you know, if the less open-minded you are, the more you're closing yourself off to potentially meeting the love of your life. And yeah, I did touch on this earlier. You know, if somebody presented my ex-boyfriend to me on paper, I would have gone, no. But I met him, and the connection and the energy that was between us was something was undeniable, and we ended up together. Obviously, we didn't stay together, but we were together for a significant amount of time. And my point behind that was that if I'd have stuck to my criteria and my quite closed mind at the time, I would have laughed. You know, so I remember saying, God, if somebody had shown me him, or I wouldn't have blinked an eyelid. I would not have, never would have given him the time of day. But I met him by chance, and the rest was history. And that's kind of what I try and say to these people, is you just don't know. You think you know what you want, but the universe sometimes comes along and shows you exactly the opposite. So my job as a matchmaker is to try and tap into them as a person and figure, you know, I might know better than themselves sometimes, which is quite hard for them to hear. But I think as human beings, we do need to hear that sometimes, is that we can't see what we're doing to ourselves. And, you know, by being closed-minded and being so stuck in our ways and thinking, no, this is exactly what I want in order to fall in love, sometimes it's not the case. And, you know, it's our job to show them, you know, we've looked at this person and think they could be great, and just give them a chance. Especially just go on a date. You know, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what type of person they're going to be like, and what the energy, you know, connection is not something that you can make up. It's, you know, that sometimes there's just connection between people, and it's undeniable. So I'll always encourage people to go on a date. You know, just go, you know, one date. You know, what's the harm? And if it's not there, then it's not there. But, you know, just by looking at one picture of somebody, and just, you know, some people are very stubborn. Very stubborn. And, you know, some people you can't budge. And if that's the case, then, you know, I have to surrender and go, okay, fine, I'll find, you know, on to the next. But we do try and encourage people to be a bit more open-minded, and just, you know, go on one date and see what it's like. And, you know, I think with dating, you know, you get something from every single one, whether it's bad or good. If you go on a terrible date, you learn something from every single one, because it's relationship building, it's character building, and you learn something of somebody, you know, just by sat there having an hour with them. And what a bad date might do is show you exactly what you don't want and confirm that. Whereas, you know, or a good date could lead to another date. But, you know, there's something to gain from every single one.
There is. It's all practice, isn't it? Regardless of what happens, getting yourself out there. I think that there's a Rolling Stones song that says, you'll know this in your music industry, that you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need. And I think that's what matchmakers are about. It's trusting them and trusting the process to get you what you want. Are there any people that you have that ring you up or meet you think there's no way I can help them?
No. We get
good answer. Trick question. Go on.
We get people that the only time we'll ever say no to somebody is, and again, this comes back to being completely transparent with people and not taking people's money. Every phone call I have with somebody, I'll always say to them, I will go back and check the database and, you know, assess whether we can help you. And if we can't help them, we will tell them. And that is usually down to the fact that we don't want to take somebody on and then not send them anything. So the only time I'll ever not take somebody on is if right at that moment in time, I know I haven't got a pool of people that I could potentially set them up with. I will stay in touch with them and say, you know, your profile's great, but, you know, so can I keep you on can kind of keep you on file, so that if and when that pool of people that fit your criteria opens back up, I can get in touch and say, hey, look, I have got more to offer you, but if we haven't got anything to offer, then we will say no, but that'll be why. Or if they don't fit the standard that we're looking for.
Sometimes people just aren't ready either. They think they are and they're not.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going for a breakup, or they haven't really thought about what they want, or they're quite new to dating for some reason. Go out there and don't join the matchmaker straight away. This is when it's time to go out there and explore other options and work on yourself, I think. But part of what I do for you is Project 143. I'm a dating coach for you, and I'm very lucky to do that, and I love it. So I know the benefits of this, but what benefits do you think dating coaching adds to matchmaking, working alongside each other?
I think everybody should have a dating coach. I mean, it's something I wish I had, especially when I got my heart severely broken, because again, this goes back to each, even on the first date thing, you have something, you learn something from every experience, but going through heartbreak or trauma in a relationship does far more damage than I think we realize sometimes, or being rejected, or I don't know, anything that's happened to you previously, even when you were a child. I think there are things that we aren't aware of as adults that we carry into a relationship, and you either find that out the hard way or it's blindingly obvious. But I think most of us find out the hard way because we project onto people, especially in relationships, and a dating coach will help you understand those things about yourself, meaning that you're able to go into your next relationship and present the best version of you, rather than expecting that person to fix those things about you. Because I think a lot of us fall into that trap of thinking that once we've met the one, all of those gaps in ourselves, they'll fill them up. They're not going to. You have to do that yourself, and then you'll meet the right person. And I think that's probably the most valuable thing about a coach, is that I'm sure they can help you figure those things out by yourself, along with, if you are picture perfect and, you don't have these issues, maybe you're not very good at flirting. Maybe you're not very good at understanding when somebody is flirting with you. So I think a coach is good at, just the smaller things like that how to get the most out of your date, how to show somebody you like them, because some of us are more affectionate than others. Some of us are massive flirts, some of us aren't, so I think, again, a coach will help you, get the best out of your date and present the best version of you.
I agree. And it's someone independent as well. That's what I tell people. So when they come to a coach, they don't always work with the company, they're not on the payroll as such. So they can tell them all the different sides to it, and it's someone to talk to. And it's having another friend in the mix who can really add value to this and show you things maybe that your matchmaker wouldn't talk about. So what success stories have you had that you're most proud of recently?
There are two big ones that stick out. So we've got two couples that are still together, one set of couple that moved in together and went traveling, obviously before COVID. And then the first match that Anika ever made, they're now engaged and set to, hopefully be together for the rest of their lives. But yeah, I think those are her two proudest success stories, because they're the biggest long-standing couples and they were right at the very start of Project 143, which is great. My experience, because I've only been here for a short amount of time, mine aren't don't go back as far as that, so I haven't had the time for anybody to get, if somebody did get married in that length of time since we've been here, I'd be very proud but slightly concerned. A very short period.
People do. I once coached somebody in December, and he was married by the following December to somebody else.
Wow.
Because that's not true. He was widowed in December, and I coached him in March, and then he was married by December again, because the wife gave him the blessing on the deathbed. And I'm very proud of that one, because he did meet somebody. That's a great success story. But I think the ones you have at the beginning are the ones that stick in your mind most. I was supposed to go to quite a few weddings that I've arranged, people that I've helped over the last 18 months. Obviously not happened, but I am going to a wedding in about at the end of this month. A friend of mine, she hasn't been someone that works for me. I always gave her direct coaching advice, and she's getting married. I encourage them to stay together and what to do, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud to be going to that, and she's amazing. And it was delayed from last December, but it's good to have these things, because I was the second person that she called when she got engaged, because she was so pleased.
Must be such a nice feeling.
It is. It's lovely. And I don't always hear, even as matchmakers, you don't always hear about people that do end up getting married because of this, because they don't want to tell people sometimes. It's like, oh, how did you meet? Oh, I had to get help. It's not how it works. It's becoming more and more common, isn't it? And it's great.
I do think there is still a taboo around it, isn't there? That people are just like, oh, we met online or things like that. I mean, I think it's when I hear that somebody, I've got a set of friends that have stayed together for years and they met on Tinder, and I'm like, how? I think it's amazing when they manage to meet through something like Tinder and it works, but I think that's just luck of the draw.
There's a lot of luck involved in that process, I have to say. It really is. But all it is a tool. Anything in life, whether it's Tinder, going to events, matchmaking, doing something, taking action is what's going to help you. Just doing nothing. And people have done a lot of nothing recently, haven't they? Because they haven't had a chance to do things. And the world is opening up and going out there and doing new things. That's the way to find a future husband or wife if that's what you want. And it's going to take time as well. You've got to start the process today. Otherwise, what's going to happen? I'll wait another 6 months, wait till I lose a stone, wait till I get a better job. There's no perfect time. Get on with it now.
I was just going to say that, one thing I always say to people is to try and not tarnish everybody with the same brush. And I know better than anybody. I've had my heart broken and been the heartbreaker more times than I'm willing to admit. But I've never let that stop me going into another one, and if anybody should, it should be me. But, they're not all the same. And the one thing I try and do is pick myself back up, and the next one that comes along and presents themselves, it is hard. And obviously there is a huge part of me that's waiting for it to go wrong or expecting them to be like the rest of them, but you can't make somebody else pay for other people's mistakes. And that's one thing I always try and say is that just let them try and love you, you've got to be fearless with love. I know it sounds really cliche, but you've got to be completely fearless and just open yourself up, because I have friends that don't, and they even are put off because of my previous experiences, and they've said, I've seen what's happened to you and how awful some people can be, and it's made them fearful. And I'm like, but has it stopped me? No, because not everybody is the same. You've just got to keep going and trust that the right person will come along.
That's great advice. People do that. They expect things to go wrong and they're looking for patterns. I always say this: don't look for things that are going to go wrong. Look for reasons why it might go right. Good behavior, and if the good behavior outweighs the bad behavior, then you're on to a winner. And hopefully,
and if you're looking for things to go wrong, you'll often end up self-sabotaging, which is the one thing that gets a lot of us. I think it used to get me, and self-sabotaging is just the word, and it trips everybody up. But I think using the phrase that you just used is a good way to stop that from happening.
Fantastic. Well, do you know what? We're at the end of the podcast already. So if someone wants to find out more about you and Project 143, how do they find out more?
Many a way. You can head to the website, which is project143.co.uk, or you can check out our socials. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn and Facebook, which are all under Project 143 Matchmaking. Those are the easiest ways. And our website does have our registration form on that people can just fill out directly, and it's also on my LinkedIn.
Wonderful. I do highly recommend, if you're a hide and seek professional, do check them out. They're an amazing company, and I can't recommend them highly enough. So thank you very much, Frances. I really enjoyed this. Great speaking to you.
You too.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespriest.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.